Hello, people. How's it going? Well, it's another day, and well, it's sunny outside, but it ain't warm. Minnesota takes a long time to warm up. It's about 60 degrees outside, maybe 70. It won't get hot until July. But anyway, this video is, it is the Roman Empire. It is fascinating. What is it about the Roman Empire that fascinates people? What is it about an empire that lasted as long as this one did? This one lasted a long time. It lasted 1,000 years as an empire, and then broke up in half. Half of it fell, the western half, and then the Byzantium Empire lasted another 1,000 years. About 1,000 years. Byzantium was the eastern half of the empire, and it didn't end until I should have this memorized, but I don't. So I have this book here. This is a good book. Augusta. Not Augustus, Augusto. My Italian is terrible. I don't know Italian. Metatron does. You should watch his videos. His videos on the Roman Empire and all that stuff is fascinating. He is good. I like his stuff. But what is it about the Roman Empire? What is it about the story of the rise of Rome, its rebellion against the Etruscans, its wars against Carthage, its battles with Hannibal and his dad, mostly Hannibal? What is it about, stories like the Battle of Cannae, where pretty much Hannibal wiped out about 60 to 70,000 Romans in about 6 hours? Those were the two warring powers of that time. But, Rome came out on top. It's a fascinating story how this small little bunch of people became an empire. And it's fascinating. I think that's why people like it. It's the ultimate underdog story, where at the height of its power, the underdog was Godzilla, and you don't mess with Godzilla. But I've always liked Roman history. It's probably on my top 5 specific parts of world history to discuss. I've always liked Roman history. When I was in my freshman year of high school, Mr. Cyrus, my history teacher, got us into ancient history. We studied more than just the Romans, of course, but Roman history is fascinating. The stories are fascinating. The personalities are fascinating. The rise and fall of other empires and other peoples, other kingdoms that they took over, like Greece, and their conquest of, Judea basically just surrendered to Pompey. Pompey said, okay, either surrender or I'm going to annihilate you. And the Jews said, okay, welcome. And then proceeded to basically complain and do other things. Say, no, we just changed our minds. But that's a whole different story. The Roman Empire is interesting. It has its interesting cast of characters as Crassus and Pompey and Caesar. Caesar is fascinating. I'm reading a book on Caesar now. Right now, I'm reading this book on Caesar. This is a good book. This is a very in-depth, very well-written book. I like this author. He's written a lot of good books. I have some of his books over there. I thought about getting a stack of my Roman history books, but I thought that might be a little overkill. I might do that still, though, maybe. But, the rise of Caesar, that's fascinating. The rise of, Augustus. I don't know how to say it in Italian. I'm just butchering it in Italian, so I'm just going to say it in English. Cleopatra, because, Cleopatra's in the news lately. The Greek Cleopatra, who was Greek, Macedonian Greek, and she wasn't from Africa. Get over it. But those stories are fascinating. The early parts of the Roman Republic are fascinating. The characters, the events, the stories, the Roman authors who wrote about these things. Like Cicero, he was an orator and a fascinating life. Mark Antony. Don't get me started on Mark Antony, because as far as I'm concerned, Mark Antony was... How to explain Mark Antony without being mean? he gave up an empire for a woman. That's all there is to it. Sorry. Mark Antony basically decided that a certain member of his body was more important than running an empire. I know, I'm a bad person. I'm an amateur historian, people. I'm not a professional. I just like the subject. I mean, the rise of the Roman Empire as an empire under Augustus, and then came Tiberius, and then came Gaius, also known as Caligula. That was his nickname. And by the way, he hated being called Caligula. If I remember correctly, I read somewhere where he literally, you do not call me Caligula or I'll remove your head with a chariot. Interesting stuff. I mean, all the early emperors are fascinating. Tiberius was interesting. Granted, a very, 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 well, to say that he had issues. He was not a good emperor. Caligula was, of course, not a good emperor. Claudius was a decent emperor. Nero was a monster, but not in the beginning. Nero started out okay, and then got kind of sick and tired of his mother trying to run the show and had her killed, and then became the monster we all know and love, or hate. I mean, the reign of the emperors after his death, and I hate it when my memory just fails me. But that's okay. That's why I have books, so I don't have to fully remember every single little thing. I can look it up real fast. It's the father of Titus, and I can't remember his name. For the life of me, I have it wrong as a complete blank. That's okay. I mean, it's all fascinating. I mean, the life of the emperors, Nero, and Commodus. Well, Commodus was way off. I mean, Domitian. Domitian was after Titus. I mean, I think I find it all interesting because human nature is fascinating. The rise and fall of these people, and the way the Roman emperor has an emperor changed, and you had to have the army on your side, or else. I mean, how do you explain all this in 15 minutes? The fascination of the rise and fall of certain empires around the Roman Empire. How do you explain the wars or the Germanic tribes? How do you explain the first Caesar's attempt to invade and conquer Britannica and failed? And then Claudius did it, and he succeeded. And then we had the rebellion by Boadicea in England. Well, I call it England. I know it wasn't England yet. But those things are interesting. The stories of these people who were part of the Roman Empire or wanted nothing to do with the Roman Empire or the emperor for some of them. But I mean, I think most people have an interest more with the first century of the Roman Empire. I'm determined to find this, people. I'm sorry. This is bothering me. I mean, then there was the first Jewish war. When the Jews decided, okay, enough is enough. We're going to go up against Godzilla, a.k.a. the Roman Empire, and try to kick them out. Bad idea. Very bad idea. That's the year of the four emperors: Galba, Vitellius, Otho, Vespasian. That's it, Vespasian. Vespasian actually was a pretty good emperor. He was actually a pretty good emperor. So his son Titus took over, and he was pretty good. Domitian was... he started out okay, but he got worse. And then there's the life of Trajan, and Mark and Hadrian, and then there's Marcus Aurelius, and then there's Commodus, and then there's all the other emperors. I mean, the names of all these emperors is fascinating. The up and down story of the Roman Empire and how it didn't fall sooner than it actually did. Because the Roman Empire was having constant issues maintaining any stability. Even with Marcus Aurelius, who they did have, it was a golden age for the Roman Empire, which actually started with, was it Trajan? Was it Trajan or Hadrian was first? I love books. You know what I mean? But anyway. Yeah. It was Trajan, and then Hadrian. And then this is the golden age, people. I mean, I know I keep going back to the book, but how do you not enjoy the rise and fall of such an empire that literally controlled the entire Mediterranean Sea, that literally controlled as many people as they did, and maintained it as long as they did? They can't make the Roman Empire as a whole lasted for over 1,000 years. I'm correct. The eastern half lasted another 1,000 years. After the fall of Rome, I'm gonna look it up. I'm not even. You look it up. That's why I'm doing this. Makes you interested. But the Roman Empire became the Byzantine Empire. It took a while for it to morph into that empire, but it was still there. But I mean, the emperors like Constantine the Great, who was not a Christian, by the way. I'm sorry. I know there are people out there who are going to get upset with that comment, but he was a politician. He used Christianity to serve a purpose, and that was the emperor. And to keep his empire stable, that was the only reason he claimed to be a Christian. He's fascinating up to a point. He's fascinating because it's almost like the turning point. The Edict of Tolerance and all this other stuff. Well, yeah, it was tolerant as long as it served his purpose. I mean, in a lot of ways, the battles with Arianism didn't end with him. I mean, he did ask for the council. He approved of the Council of Nicaea, which was supposed to fight against Arianism, which actually basically the empire eventually accepted. I'm sorry, people, but if you study it long enough, you begin to realize that Arianism had never left. The empire just sort of took a little bit of it and sort of tried to make both of them work. I mean, Julian was not wrong. What Christianity, what the church was becoming under these Roman emperors, I like Julian the Apostate. I find him very interesting. As an emperor, I find him interesting. As a person, I find him interesting. I think he was a little too late. In fact, he was a lot too late. But as an emperor, he literally told the Christians, you're going to stop fighting each other. And he wasn't wrong. I mean, he wasn't. May not like this, but once the church got into politics, the church ceased to be the church of anything other than itself and what it wanted, which was power, which was to run the Roman Empire. I mean, the Roman Empire is fascinating. From its rise, from its fall, from the different personalities, from the different authors who wrote about it, from the different philosophies, the mythology, everything about the Roman Empire is fascinating. Even into the Byzantine Empire, when it fell in 1454. May of 1454. If I remember correctly, it was May 29th. I could look it up, but I'm trying to do this by memory. May 29th, 1454, I believe, was when the Byzantine Empire, Constantinople, finally fell to the Sultan, to the Turks. But the empire held together for a reason. It lasted as long as it did for a reason. It's a miracle that it held together as long as it did. Because it is a fascinating story of how just a small tribe in Italy became this dominant empire of the Mediterranean. And all the personalities and all the characters and all the stories and all the history and all the amazing and tragic events of the empire's impact on other nations like Judea and Egypt and the Gauls in France and Britain. I mean, I'm trying to keep this under 15 minutes, so I might do a part 2 maybe, but the Roman Empire is fascinating. I might do a review of the books I have. Maybe I might be able to talk better on those. But there are a lot of good books out there on the Roman Empire. I mean, that one on Caesar is good. This one is basically an encyclopedia. It's just basically a chronology of things, and it talks about the architecture. The architecture is fascinating. There's an endless amount of things about the Roman Empire. Not just the conquests. I mean, it just is. I want to keep this under 15. because I could always do a part 2 of this thing. But the Roman Empire was fascinating. The architecture was fascinating. The government of it was fascinating. The idea of Rome was fascinating. And anyway, if you want real historians, check out Metatron on his YouTube channel. Well, like mine, save it. Share it. Leave comments. Let me know what you think of my ramblings. Thank you, people. Enjoy yourselves. Now behave yourself, because I'm not going to. I don't know how.